Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? That's another week of routes down, and we've got some reader mail to share with you. This one comes courtesy of our homeboy Kenny Parrish, government name Kenny Parrish. If you're cool like Kenny and you're a paid subscriber to the Cracker Stack, you get shoutouts in books, including the upcoming Howling Wilderness, where Kenny Parrish is a contender in the Appalachian Rally Classic. Subtext: pay to become a subscriber to the Cracker Stack. Anyway, Kenny asks me if I've got any book recommendations for his nephew, who is, we'll say, middle grade aged. I'm not going to dox his age here. Late elementary school, early middle school. As a former bookstore worker of a bookstore that sucks, but I digress. This is a question that vexes marketers year in and year out. You'll ask three different book marketing professionals what this age group wants, and you'll get 12 different answers. What even is middle grade fiction? It varies. The rule of thumb that I go by is if you look at the Harry Potter series, it's two trilogies bridged by a hybrid book in the middle. The first three books are very middle grade, the last three books are very young adult because Harry goes from that age to that age. And then the book in the middle is that awkward transition between you're no longer in middle school and you're kind of heading into high school, but you've got expectations from both ends of the spectrum. Kenny did mention that his nephew has read all of the Captain Underpants books. I've never read a single one of those, even though I know what they are. He says that he's reading Harry Potter with his parents, and because Kenny knows me, he headed me off at the pass and said that the kid has also read Hatchet and liked it, which, Hatchet is just my go-to recommendation for young male readers. So after kind of racking my head and picking my own brain all day long, I thought, well, here are what my recommendations might be. Looking back to that age, I remember that middle school was probably the time that I started reading Crichton, although I was 12 when I first read a Michael Crichton novel, which is different from being this kid's age. It's a few years ahead. So you could still try him out on something like that. Michael Crichton writes lengthier stuff than this nephew has read, but he does have a couple of books that are simpler and a little bit more accessible. Off the top of my head, I would recommend Congo and Dragon Teeth. Interestingly enough, both of these books were written around the same time, but they were published, one at the very beginning of his career and the other posthumously. These are books that don't really have rough content in them. Congo does get a little bit violent once they get into the jungle and the evil killer Zinjapes are there. But there's no language or sex or anything. And then Dragon Teeth, for a while, the main character does get stuck in, I believe it's Deadwood, Colorado. And it's a town of criminals and prostitutes and stuff. Again, the main character, he's got some vanilla name like William Johnson or something. He's not caught up in any of that, but it is there in the background. It's not like he kicks a door open and finds a ruffian with a lady of the night in the middle of the deed, but you get it. But those books are otherwise clean on language and content, and Congo is a very good example of a almost classical adventure novel. It's a strong mixture of science, cryptography, computer science, zoology, and then random Westerners explore the lost jungles of Africa and find something crazy and mind blowing type trope, mixed in with a lot of Crichton's signature like techno realism and stuff like that. So it's a good example, but if it's a little bit too elevated for him, you can scale down and go a little bit simpler. Animorphs is a great recommendation. I haven't read one of those in a couple of months, but they are getting their second wind and have been for a couple of years now. They are getting new covers and all of that. And so grab him one or two of the Animorphs books. You just start out with the first one. I don't know if Goosebumps is still around. I don't know if they would also have the same impact as they did back in the 90s, but it's something to consider. And as a final note, just last night, I was talking about movies coming out this year, with my kids, some of whom are close to Kenny's nephew's age. And we like to read a book if there's a movie of it, read the book, then watch the movie. And my kids have also read the Narnia books, and we're working our way through the Harry Potter books. Every time we finish one, we watch the movie. A book that they're reading right now and really enjoying, both in audio and in print. We listen to the audiobook as a family, and then they fight over the print book later to read the chapters throughout the week, is called The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. I remember picking this one up on audio a couple of years ago. It's a very short, very simple, like it's on the younger end of middle grade. Like a very third grade to at the most like sixth grade type book. But I was doing research for writing my own type of middle grade novel, so I checked this one out in 2018, and it was a pretty cool concept. The first book sold really well. There was a sequel, and then I don't think he wrote anything more for a while. And then now there's a movie coming out this year in September, and I've seen a trailer for it. It looks pretty similar to like the feel of the novel, and because of the success of all that, Brown has gone back and has written a third one. I don't know if it's out yet. I remember seeing it. It was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll have to check that one out. The story is cool. It's set in a very distant technological future. A company like Amazon that's also dealing with AI and now robots is far more prolific in this book than it is in our world, but not beyond the point of imagination. And they ship these robots everywhere. And one of these shipping vessels sinks in a storm, and the shipping container cracks open, and a bunch of crated, pre-programmed robots go sinking into the sea. But one of these crates floats and drifts and lands on an island. And I remember it's like sea otters get into the styrofoam packaging because it's like catnip to them. And while they're rummaging around, one of them bumps a button and turns the robot on. And they're programmed to adapt to whatever language their owners are speaking. And this robot just ends up learning the language of all the animals. And then it starts exploring this world, learning how to interact with it. And in the process, accidentally squishes a bird and decides to take the bird's place because the bird was a nesting mother, and nurture these little bird hatchlings and become a part overall of the ecosystem on this island. And then things come to a head when a series of recovery robots is sent out to pick up all the lost assets that sank at the bottom of the sea, and then also go to the island where the homing beacon shows them that there's one active robot roaming around. Hence the wild robot. So a strong concept. It's easy for a younger mind to grasp, and it's emotional enough that at least my kids are making a connection with it. And I think it's the kind of thing that maybe your nephew could sink his teeth into. So that would be my suggestion. Probably not too long after I started reading Crichton, I also started reading first epic fantasies that I ever got into. It's a lamentable fact that I tried Terry Goodkind before I tried Tolkien in 8th or ninth grade, and Goodkind was very heavily riffing on Tolkien, just adding in his kinks, we'll say. So once I discovered Tolkien, I never went back and read another Goodkind book. But I kept reading Crichton, and I still read him to this day, read him and reread him. But for a reader in that young window, definitely try him out on Animorphs, try him out on the Wild Robot. And as a final note, I'm going to do a video on this one pretty soon. Consider Johnny Tremaine by Esther Forbes. It is a youth novel set in Boston during the Revolution. It starts with maybe a year or two before the Boston Tea Party, and it ends with Lexington and Concord. And it's focused on a fictional young man named Johnny Tremaine who starts out as a silversmith. He injures his hand while he's working, and he ends up having to change trades. And this leads one thing to another, and he falls in with the Sons of Liberty, and then he's there at the Boston Tea Party. He's there at Lexington and Concord. It's a very accessible yet well-written historical novel. I think it won the Newbery Award, like back in the 1950s, back when that meant something. So try out that. You can grab the audiobook from most libraries. It's narrated by George Guidall, who does the Longmire novels, amongst others. So very good, very qualified narrator, very robust voice. And you should be able to get through that one pretty quick and decide if that's a good fit for your nephew. So that's that. And if you viewers have any more suggestions for, let's say, a kid between 4th and 6th grade, let us know in the comments below. Until next time, drive safe. See you out there.